All right, everyone. So I thought this was a really cool story. So it's from The Athletic or from the New York Times, so they obviously own The Athletic. Andrew Filipponi tweeted out this. This is an excerpt from the story. Great reporting from Mike DeFabo in The Athletic. Aaron Rodgers was reportedly sobbing when Tomlin quit and kept apologizing to him nonstop. Very interesting. Here's what he said from the report. Inside the team meeting room on Tuesday, Rodgers, through sobs, mustered a two-word message to deliver to his coach. I'm sorry. Several players heard him say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So this to me was a shocking thing to read because, the media really the media really, had their narrative about Aaron Rodgers, and some of it, what he says to the press doesn't necessarily help. But I think this shows you two really big things. Number one, it shows you the type of coach Mike Tomlin is. You hear about it all the time. Mike Tomlin, oh, he's so great, he's so great, he's so great. This tells you everything you need to know about Mike Tomlin and how great of a coach he really is. Because this is a guy in Aaron Rodgers who's a veteran, right? He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's won a Super Bowl. And with just 1 year playing for Mike Tomlin, he feels this way about him. He feels this way about him. And that to me was stunning. The second part of this is it shows you why the Steelers even made the playoffs this season. Because, everybody wanted to put blame on Aaron Rodgers, and, it was going to be a year where obviously the sports media was fixated on what the Steelers could do. And I thought Aaron Rodgers handled himself well all year. I think the fact he got this team to the playoffs was a major win. And even in that game against the Texans, I understand the final score was the final score, but I thought the Steelers, I mean, granted, it took a lot of turnovers, right, by the Texans offense. They had their chances in that game. And there were a few things that, had they gone differently, maybe they find a way to win it, right? And once again, I understand the score was what the score is, but it was one of those things where once it started getting bad, it got horrible, right? But for the first, what, 3 quarters, 3.5 quarters, it was a close game. It was a battle between the two sides. And, granted, like I said, there were turnovers that certainly gave the Steelers some life, but I just liked a lot of what I saw from Aaron Rodgers this year. I liked a lot of what I saw all throughout the season. And this shows me right here what the goal of this season was for him. He really thought that he could take this Steelers team and maybe bring them and Mike Tomlin on that playoff run. He thought he could do it. And looking at how he played, I actually think he could have too. If you could have just gotten him a little bit better of, in offensive line, if you could have played a different team, and I understand the Texans have huge flaws on the offensive end, but I think if there was one team the Steelers did not want to play, it was the Texans, just because of how good that defense is. Like, they basically made the Steelers a non-existent offense for that entire game. And there were moments where Rodgers had his chances, and that defense just one of their rushers just got there, right? Like, one of the plays he fumbled on, actually, um, after the fumble, they showed the clip of, and this was when it was still close, DK Metcalf was running open, right? And Rodgers was about to throw that football. So I think it was on a fumble play. It was either on a fumble play or one of the plays where they ended up punting. But stuff like that, that split second difference. If instead he hits Metcalf on a deep touchdown, everything looks different. And I think if they had played really any of these other teams, if they had gone up against the Chargers have a great defense, but they don't have it to the level of the Texans. And I think, could they have potentially pulled out a win? I do. Because I think they could have played again against the Texans and found a way to potentially win the game. It was just the defense was overwhelming. And if Rodgers could have gotten a little bit more out of that offensive line, just had a little bit more time, I think they maybe could have done something, in the playoffs. But this tells you a lot. Tells you a lot about Tomlin. Tells you a lot about Aaron Rodgers. And I think the media should keep that into account because, like I said, everybody wants to get all over Aaron. They want to attack him. And some of the stuff, he's certainly maybe will bring it on himself, right, as it pertains to him having kind of a grouchy attitude towards the media. But we put up that video of what he said about Tomlin and Matt LaFleur, and I thought everything he said there, I know the media doesn't like it, but everything he said there was true, right? There's certain things that, as a leader, you could criticize Aaron for, but what he said about Tomlin and LaFleur, and the fact that the media kind of always does this, where they're out there basically trying to get guys fired. I 100% agreed with everything he said, and this tells me a lot about Rodgers, and this makes me want him to play again next season. This right here makes me want to see Aaron Rodgers back in an NFL uniform, because it shows you the level, how much he really cares about this thing, right? And how much he cared about this season. And he feels, man, if I could have just gotten us, right, 1 or 2 more wins here in the playoffs, we could have run this thing back. Instead, it's a reset. And he clearly sees that. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.